What we do here is go back.
Howdy everyone, my name is UrehMagus and welcome back to the Blender for Beginners course. In this part we're going to go over adding bone constraints to our little mini character that we have. So without further ado, let's get started. Picking up from where we left off in the last part, if you're confused or if you don't have any reference where we left off, please go back and start the Blender for Beginners course from beginning and you'll eventually make your way here. Or you can just watch the previous video. We have our character and we have our rig. However, it's a little cumbersome to have to move all of these bones individually to kind of get the effect that we want, right? So what we need to do is add some constraints to our rig to make our life a bit easier. First thing we want to do is we want to tab into edit mode in the rig and select the arms and the chest and make sure we parent them to each other so that now the chest properly moves the arms. Next, we're going to add a couple of constraints, which means that we have to add a few more bones. So we're going to add 4 bones in particular. Just select this bone here and then hit E to extrude on the Y axis. And that's created 4 bones, 2 bones on each side. For this bone, we're going to, in our bone properties here, we're going to name this elbow.l, and then we're going to name this hand ik.l. And a trick we can do to make naming the other side a bit easier is we can just select this bone, hit Control C, and then select its corresponding bone on the right side. Select this here, hit Control V, and then just replace the L with an R, and there you go, done. Do the same thing with the hand IK. Control C, Control V, R. Do the same thing that we just did for the arms to the legs. We're gonna name this knee. And then we're going to name this foot ik.l. And we can copy that, paste it, R, and then we can copy this, Control V, paste it, R. So the next thing we're going to do is we want to make sure that these IK bones here are parented to the overarching root bone here. So and then we also want this hip bone to actually be parented to a different bone as well. So while we're in edit mode here, we're just going to hit Shift D to duplicate the hip bone, and we're going to rotate it on the Y axis, or on the X axis, sorry, 90 degrees. And we're going to bring it all the way down till it's touching the floor. We're going to parent the hips to this bone, keep offset. We're going to name this bone root bone, or just root. There we go. And we're going to parent our IK constraints. Well, first we're going to disconnect these bones here. So select these bones, hit Alt P, clear parent, and that'll disconnect them. Same thing with these down here. Alt P, clear parent. Make sure you do the same for, Alt P, clear parent. I want parent cleared on both of these bones. So Alt P, clear parent. So now these bones can move freely. Next, like I said, we want to parent these bones to the root bone. So select the foot, the knee, the hand, and the elbow. Control P, keep offset. There we go. Next, we're going to add the constraints to actually have these bones control the arms and legs. So for the arms and the legs, we're going to add an IK constraint. IK stands for inverse kinematics. To add your constraint, you want to go to the bone constraint properties, and just like a modifier, we can click down here and we have a bunch of different options. So we're going to click inverse kinematics, or you can hit Shift I to active bone, but we're not going to do it on this bone. We want it to be on this bone. So click this bone here and then shift select, click this bone, and then shift I to active bone, and now we've added our IK constraint over here. And it's already automatically given us the target, which is the armature, and the bone in the target, which is the hand. We're now going to specify the chain length, which is basically how far down the bone chain does it go. It only goes down 2, so all the way up to here, and there we go. Next, we're going to add a IK to this bone as well, but for the elbow. So select this bone, shift select this bone, shift I to active bone, and then we're going to give it a chain length of 1. Chain length of 1. And now when I move the arm here, if I move this, I can adjust the elbow. And if I move the upper arm, or if I move the upper torso, the hand stays with it. So, or the hand stays where it's at. If you want that to change, then you can change the parent of the hand. So if you want the hands to move with the chest, same thing with the elbow, I guess. Select both of those and then select the chest and then hit Control P, keep offset. So now whenever you move the chest, the arms move with it, and you can also keep your constraint. So we're just going to add that to the other side, and there we go. So now we have an arm rig that is a bit more usable than before. So let's hit A, and to reset your position you can hit Alt G, Alt R, and Alt S, and that'll clear all of your transformations that you made. Next we're going to do the same thing for the legs. And there we go. Now our legs also have a similar setup to our arms. For readability's sake, it's always a good idea to move your knee and elbow joints a bit away from the object itself. That way you can better tell how it's affecting the position of both of those things. And there you have it. So the cool thing about this setup here is that we can hit G on the hips, and now when we move the hips, the feet stay planted. So that enables us to do the squats, have them jump. Basically it automates a few actions that we otherwise would have had to counter animate, and that just makes our life so much easier. The last thing that you probably want to do, if we can, is you want to Alt P and disconnect this bone from the hips, and we want to rotate the hips 180 degrees on the y-axis. We will rotate it on the x-axis just a little bit, so we have a reverse hip here. Now what this enables us to do is, if we on this bone go to our bone properties here, and in relations, if we uncheck inherit rotation, we now have separate hip movement. So with this we can grab our character and move him around, change his hips, his upper body, we can move his arms around, and with the root bone here we can move the entire character. So the last thing you want to do for this little hand-me-down rig is, now we don't have any use for the actual leg bones and the arm bones. However, we still have use for the head, neck, shoulders, and spine, and also the IK bones and the root. So what you want to do is take these bones go to your object data properties here, and you have different bone layers. So what we can do is we can just hit M and move them to a separate bone layer. Look at that. Now our screen is less cluttered, and we can focus on the bones that we only on the bones that we need to animate our character. And so now you can a lot easier pose your character. Before we go, we'll make a quick little animation with our character. So, in pose mode, now that you have your character posed, let's say you want to have him wave. So with this selected, we're going to hit I. So make sure you select everything. So hit A to make sure you have everything selected. Hit I and click location rotation scale on all of your bones. And then we'll shoot up to 10 frames. So we'll go up to frame 11. And we'll have his hand move this way. And then we will I to mark that location rotation in the scale, and then we'll move the frames up 10 more, so 21. And we're gonna move this over to the right. And then we're gonna hit I, location rotation scale. And what we can do is we can duplicate these two keyframes by selecting them and hitting Shift D and moving them down like so. And there we go. So now make sure you have your output settings where you want your video file to go, and we can hit Control F12 and get a render of our animation. I'm not gonna take the whole time to render it out. And there you go, you can view your animation once you go to render and view animation. That concludes this tutorial series. For a bonus video, I'm going to show you all the introduction to Rigify. However, you can stop here and you can further explore Blender. With this series, I hope I've given you the basics so you can start making any sort of character or scene that you like and get them to a point where you can move and take pictures and animations of them. So thank you all for following me through this series, and I hope to see you all in the next character series. Have a good one.